Well, I never met a hunter till I moved to Vermont. Okay, so I'd been visiting Vermont from the time I was 9. And when I was 28, I couldn't take another summer in New York City. It was a very unpleasant place to be as a young woman, a single young woman, where men, complete strangers, told me things that they would want to do with me that I just really had no interest in doing with them. It was horrible. So I came to Vermont, to this place I'd been coming to, and I was incredibly lonely, which was a surprise because I lived by myself in New York City. But I had one date with the guy. I had decided to come to Vermont. I had to buy a car. I had moved to New York City so I wouldn't have to buy a car. I had a bicycle, and I had the subway. And I bought a car so I could move to Vermont for the summer, a 4-month summer. I was at Columbia University teaching and finishing my dissertation. And so I had 4 months. I bought a car. I thought, okay, I'll sell it. I found a small house. It was smaller than my New York apartment. Probably the only one with a smaller kitchen in the country than I did in New York City. And I discovered I was terribly lonely, and I decided also that I would keep the house, which cost less than my apartment, and I'd keep the car, and I'd keep coming up. So I bought firewood to heat my little house, and the guy who sold it to me asked me out for lunch, but he was very confused when I used big words. So I decided I was going to give up on this dating and mating thing. I had a great life. I had nieces. I had friends with kids. Maybe someday I'd meet a man who had kids already. But I was not going to get married. And 2 weeks later, I met a man I've been married to since 1986. But because I had no skin in the game, he came over for dinner, and I told him about what I was writing about. And first of all, he told me he had read Pride and Prejudice. I wrote about Jane Austen. And so I said, well, then I'll invite you over. And we knew hundreds of people in common. So it was a lot of serendipity and kismet and all those good things. And it's still very good. So, and yeah, I never thought I'd be married. And it's now almost 40 years. We've been together for more than 40 years. So pretty remarkable to me, shocking. So,
welcome back to Living the Next Chapter, the author podcast. We get to meet amazing authors from around the world. This author to join me today is somewhere that I love, and I was there years ago and loved it, and now I have time with Deborah today, talking about where she lives, but also, more importantly, everybody, you got to go outside. So if you're listening to this podcast inside and you have the option to go outside, then go. Get your shoes on, go for a walk. This is a great way to listen to this episode because you need to get outside and get some air. So you're going to find that out through our conversation. Deborah's here. Deborah, welcome to Living Next Chapter. Glad to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Dave. It is a pleasure to be here.
Right? But now encourage them to go outside, Deborah. Like, get their shoes on.
Absolutely.
Let's go. Come on.
I try to go outside every day and notice something. And then I write it down, or I write a reel or make a reel and put it on my Instagram. So I think it's really important to get outside. And that's some of what my book is about, is getting outside and getting into the woods without a trail, without a blaze. I was just fearful of going off trail into the woods on my own. And that's part of what my book is about.
Good segue. So, well done. You've done that before. That's great. Well done. So tell everybody where you are, Deborah.
I am in southeastern Vermont, and I have written this book called Reviving Artemis, The Making of a Huntress. And the through line is the story of being frightened of the woods, wanting to learn how to read the landscape that's my home. I'm a reader. I am actually a scholar and a critic and trained with a PhD in English literature. And I can read almost anything, except I could not read the forest. Get a panic attack when I'd go into the woods. just scared I wouldn't find out unless I went in the snow. And then I knew I could follow my tracks back. And one day, and I'm also a fanatical gardener and a locavore long before the word was coined. I started being aware of eating local food as an environmental practice in 1975. And I realized one day that I was fencing out wildlife, and I live in a state that's mostly wild and wildlife. And I heard this voice from the universe: follow the deer.
Mm.
And I knew that the deer would teach me. I also knew a lot of hunters, and I realized that would be the ultimate in local food, would
Right.
be to learn how to read the landscape and learn how to become a deer hunter. The only problems were that, one, I was 60 years old when I heard this voice, and two, I'd never even held a firearm. I have strong beliefs about
Yeah.
guns should be restricted. People should be licensed and have insurance and the same liability we have for cars.
Yeah.
And I went out and I learned how to shoot a rifle. I learned the difference between a rifle and a handgun. And a shotgun. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea that firearms were actually historical artifacts. Nor did I think I could shoot one. And in fact, turns out that because I practice yoga, I'm a really good shot.
Mm.
So I couldn't back out. I had to keep going. And that was a big hurdle, but I got over it. Then the bigger hurdle was really finding my way in the woods and finding where the deer were and being observant. This everyday outdoors is really about being observant in the woods. The way I'm so observant of a text. I can read any text in English, and now I can read the text of the forest, which is like a library. You've got the beech are filed in one section and the hemlock are in another and the oak in another. And if you know where they meet, you'll know where to find the deer. And all water runs downhill. You can always get out that way.
Yeah.
So that's the through line of the story. But it's also, when you get to be 60 years old, you have a long backstory. And I've filled in a lot of the backstory into the story about learning to hunt. For instance, being female, born in mid 20th century suburbia, into a family with only brothers. There was a real lot of gender stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
Being told I was being treated the same when obviously I wasn't. And my brothers, I want to just say this, my brothers have grown up into be wonderful feminist men for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
With three, there's always an exception. And and I lost where I was going with that. Oh, but at the time that we were growing up in the 50s and 60s, we all thought that being a boy was better than being a girl.
Mm.
Even I believed that was true for a long time. And then I came of age during the second wave of feminism, and I thought something else.
Yeah.
And that's where Artemis comes in, as in the title of this book, Reviving Artemis. I always thought Artemis was, as she's depicted in art, in most art, that she was this Greek goddess who was tall, slim, small-breasted, and had a long bow. Mm-hmm. And fast on her feet. Well, none of that describes me at 60. So, but then I learned that Artemis, before she was known as Zeus's daughter or Apollo's sister, she was known as Artemis of Ephesus, really ancient. She had a temple built to her at Ephesus, which is now in Turkey. It was Greece then. And it was so important that it was rebuilt 3 times. And the third time, it was one of the 7 wonders of the world. It was a place of pilgrimage for men and women. And Artemis was worshipped for being the mother of the hunt and of childbirth, the goddess of the hunt, the goddess of childbirth, and the goddess of the wild nature, which one reader thought, isn't that a contradiction? And it's like, no, everything comes from nature.
Right.
And Mother Nature, we call her, right?
Yeah.
And so I started to learn about Artemis, and I started to read the stories that were I only read them in translation, but I read different translations, and I read even the translations that are traditional and written by men a little differently. And the story of Actaeon, I'm hoping I'm getting this correct without reading it. Actaeon is the warrior who comes upon Artemis when she's taking a bath. She's naked. She has unstrung her bow. But Actaeon and his bros have been off on a wanton killing spree, which is pretty antithetical to nature, and it's exactly the sort of thing that gives hunters a really bad name.
Yeah.
It does occur. I know it occurs, but it doesn't occur as often as people harvest deer for sustenance. And I am definitely a sustenance hunter. But what Artemis does is she splashes him with water. He is turned into a deer. And his hounds, who are with him, chase him. And he can't speak. And he can't outrun the dogs. And they kill him. And I see that women, in 2018, when I was still learning to hunt, I still hadn't taken my first deer. There were women coming forth and saying, yeah, I was in a position of being silenced too, and I'm not going to be silent anymore. So that's where the Artemis part of this comes in. And then there's the aging part. I found that this was to learn something so outside my comfort zone.
Right.
Was a fierce way of aging. To learn something so far into my upbringing, my family, there's probably not been a hunter in my family for 6,000 years.
Yeah.
My family hunts for bargains. They hunt for houses.
Yeah.
They think game is parcheesi, tennis, something like that. Yeah. This is like so outside my comfort zone. And most of the hunters I know have been raised in the culture of hunting, and it's usually passed down generationally. But that heritage has really been broken as people have moved to the city. And now we live at a time when more than half the population of the globe lives in an urban center.
Right. Yeah.
And which is part of why we're in such environmental danger of burning up.
Yeah.
And if you don't experience nature, if you don't go out into the woods or just outside, you have no reason to protect it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot in this book. There's a lot about being female, about being American, about going into the woods by yourself in the dark with a rifle. And it's about family. And I grew up with 3 brothers, and I am the lucky mother of 3 daughters.
Oh.
So and I all I wanted was a sister. Each of my daughters has 2 sisters. So I feel like, every generation gets a little better.
There you go. I like it.
One hopes.
Do you think you would have, if you met yourself, it's hard to do this, but if you met yourself as a younger version of yourself, knowing where you are today and what you've written about and where you are in this, like a completely different shift for you, what would you have thought of yourself back then? Like, oh, that version of me, that's not me. I would never do that. Like, is it light and day for you?
Yes and no. I mean, if I was a seventh grader, I would wonder, well, did Artemis wear blue eyeshadow? You know? Um, but by the time I was a teenager or in college, I would have different ideas. So I was a vegetarian in college, and that's
Yeah.
what started me on this. Being a locavore and
Hmm.
learning about local food was a result of being in this Whole Foods co-op. I had a terrible housing lottery number after my freshman year. All my friends got into the cool co-ops, and I got into the natural foods co-op. And I adapted, and I became one of the bread bakers. We started by milling our own whole wheat flour.
Hmm.
And we had this decision. We had a couple of meetings. One meeting after dinner was, would we serve meat if we could find a locally raised steer? And the consensus was yes. If we could find a grass-fed steer, we would, because we had all read Francis Moore Lepay's Diet for a Small Planet, and we all knew that it took 16 pounds of corn to raise a deer. This is before Michael Pollan, who has helped more people know this, that it
Hmm.
takes a lot of grain. And now we know that cows don't even usually eat grain. It's not
Yeah.
normal food for them.
Yeah.
They eat grass. So one enterprising member of the co-op went out and found a farmer who had a grass-fed steer.
Yeah.
So, and he would sell it to us. He'd slaughter it and butcher it and sell it to us. And so this person came back to the co-op. We had another after dinner meeting, and he put the question to us. Well, someone asked, what would happen to the steer if we didn't slaughter it, if we didn't buy it and slaughter it?
Right.
And he said, well, he'd live, but he'd go into the barn and eat grain. And when push came to shove, that's what happened. We, as a collective, the majority was, no, let him live. And I felt badly both for us, the meat eaters, and for the steer who was going to live in the barn and then be slaughtered.
Hmm. Right.
So that made me really think a lot about where my food comes from and how far it travels.
Yeah.
Because after driving our cars, driving our food is the next biggest source of global warming.
Hmm.
And I think I've taken it to an extreme. I try to grow a lot of my food,
Yeah.
and I try to source the rest of it locally. We raise our own chickens for meat, and we have a laying flock for eggs. I have a huge vegetable garden. We have berries and an orchard, which doesn't do very well.
Hmm.
And we make exceptions. I mean, food is one of those touchstones. People have such fierce ideas about
Hmm.
what you should eat, what you can eat, what God says you should do about food, what you should say before you eat it. And there's nobody who's really consistent all the time.
Yeah.
It's very hard in this world. So I draw the line. I use olive oil, which is not produced in Vermont. I drink red wine, which is not produced in Vermont.
Hmm.
I don't want to live life without coffee and chocolate.
Yeah.
Those are my benchmarks.
Right.
But there are other things, I have salt, I have spices from all over the world. That's how we have global trade.
Yeah.
Is started with spices. So I don't remember how we got in this track.
My question to you then, a lot of
Mhm.
what you're talking about is based on where you live. If we transported you and your family to an apartment in Manhattan, could you have written this book?
Well, I don't know that I would be a deer hunter, but I might hunt down farms. And I know that in the last, I don't know how many years, but I know there are farm markets in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Union Square is a famous one. My first job in New York City, I moved to New York after I graduated college,
Yeah.
and the office I went to was at Union Square, which was mostly populated by people suffering from substance abuse.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing one very beautiful woman walk by me, just gorgeous. And she looked back at me, and I looked back at her, and I realized that she was either transgender or
Yeah.
transvestite. I don't
Yeah.
know. And I thought, well, if I were interested in looking like that, I could put the work in, but I
Hmm.
really am not interested in looking like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, she was so put together, so well made up, so beautiful. And I just sort of said, okay, that's not me.
Mm. Yeah.
So, that place that I avoided because of the substance abuse and
Yeah.
fear of crime is now this thriving farm market
Yeah.
on certain days of the week. And I know people who have meat CSAs. They go to a certain corner on a certain day,
Yep.
and the farmer comes and delivers their meat. And I
Yeah.
imagine there's something similar. There are people growing farm produce on rooftops,
Hmm.
and people in New Jersey who are trucking their food in. So if you draw 100-mile radius around New York City
Hmm.
and you want to eat local foods, you've got the ocean, you've got New Jersey's
Yeah.
farm, all the farms in New Jersey. You've got Connecticut farms. You can make a good stab at it.
Yeah.
You can't eat everything local unless you really want to suffer, but
Yeah.
if you want to enjoy life, I think it's really important to enjoy food. It's eating dinner, feeding people, eating together has always been a really important part of my family.
Yeah.
So I grew up in the 50s, 60s, in the 60s. My mom, she's feeding 6 people, 3 of them voracious boys, and a daughter who wanted to eat as much as the boys because I was equal, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and and we ate things like spaghetti and eggs, hot dogs and baked beans from a can.
Hmm.
Uh, I didn't know that soup could be made from anything but a red and white can until I was much older.
That's my last
And
name, so there you go, Campbell. There you go.
right, there you go.
Yeah.
It was great. We had tuna salad sandwiches or egg salad
Yeah.
sandwiches and chicken and rice soup or chicken and noodle soup almost every day for lunch.
Yeah.
Who cared? But the way we ate dinner was we started with a salad, and this was
Yeah.
back in the days of iceberg lettuce and
Hmm.
waxed cucumbers and tomatoes that were just hard as rocks. And my dad served it first my little brother, then me, then my middle brother, then my oldest brother, and then my mom, and then himself. And miraculously, by the time he served himself, there was nothing left in the bowl. And then my mom would pick up her fork, and that meant we could start eating.
Mm.
And so it was like this ritual.
Yeah.
And then when we'd eat in the dining room, we'd have a tablecloth and china and silver and crystal, and it was just wonderful.
Right.
And so I learned sort of the holiness of food that way.
Hmm.
And we've compared, we've brought it to we do it a little differently here, but we have meals that are almost all homegrown.
Yeah.
And it's labor intensive. It's also really grounding. There is nothing more grounding than weeding a row of beets.
Hmm.
It's just sitting in the warm earth,
Yeah.
or going out to pluck a ripe tomato, which is this short window
Yeah.
of
Right.
time. And as a result, I can't eat tomatoes any other time of year, but I can a lot of them. We make
Yeah.
tomato sauce. Last summer, we built a pizza oven so that people can participate in making dinner.
Hmm.
It's this whole all hands on deck. We have people rolling the dough, people topping the pizzas, people running them out to the oven, bringing them back in, and then we all sit down and eat together.
Right.
It's very festive. Yeah.
For people who question hunting, the big topic of hunting, seeing your book might be a little, well, here's a word, triggering for them. Trigger on the guy. For them,
Yeah.
as they see that, they're like,
Right.
I would never go hunting.
Mm-hmm.
That's not who I am. That's not what I would believe in or what I would stand for. Was that you at some point in your earlier days? Or because did you have anybody modeling for you? I'm a hunter. Like I have my uncle. He hunts all the time. So I have a point of reference to what hunting looks like and, bringing home that. So did you have anybody like that? Like tell me more about that.
Well, I never met a hunter till I moved to Vermont.
Okay.
Okay, so I'd been visiting Vermont from the time I was 9. And when I was 28, I couldn't take another summer in New York City.
Yeah.
It was a very unpleasant place to be as a young woman, a single young woman, where men, complete strangers, told me things that they would want to do with me that I just really had no interest in doing with them. It was horrible. So I came to Vermont, to this place I'd been coming to, and I was incredibly lonely, which was a surprise because I lived by myself in New York City. But I had one date with the guy. I had decided to come to Vermont. I had to buy a car. I had moved to New York City so I wouldn't have to buy a car.
You're right.
I had a bicycle. And I had the subway. And I bought a car so I could move to Vermont for the summer, a 4-month summer. I was at Columbia University teaching and finishing my dissertation. And so I had 4 months. I bought a car. I thought, okay, I'll sell it. I found a small house. It was smaller than my New York apartment. Probably the only one who had a smaller kitchen in the country than I did in New York City. And I discovered I was terribly lonely, and I decided also that I would keep the house, which was cost less than my apartment, and I'd keep the car, and I'd keep coming up. But so I bought firewood to heat my little house, and the guy who sold it to me asked me out for lunch, but he was very confused when I used big words. So I decided I was going to give up on this dating and mating thing.
Yeah.
I had a great life. I had nieces. I had friends with kids. Maybe someday I'd meet a man who had kids already. But I was not going to get married. And 2 weeks later, I met a man I've been married to since 1986. But because I had no skin in the game, he came over for dinner, and I told him about what I was writing about. And first of all, he told me he had read Pride and Prejudice. I wrote about Jane Austen. And so I said, well, then I'll invite you over. And we knew hundreds of people in common. So it was a lot of serendipity and kismet and all those good things. And it's still very good. So, and I never thought I'd be married, and it's now almost 40 years.
Yeah.
We've been together for more than 40 years.
Wow.
So, pretty remarkable to me. Shocking. So,
the whole idea about hunting.
About hunting. So we bought in 1985, right. In 1985, we bought a house, and the house came with the man. It was a 200-year-old center chimney cape, and the house came with the man who had fixed it up. An old house takes a lot of fixing up. Yeah. And it came with the man who fixed it up for the previous owners, and his name is Roger. And he came and fixed it for us. We brought it up a little further into the 20th century at that time. I was an early adopter of computing for word processing. I had one of the first Macintoshes. Wow. And a daisy wheel printer. And I needed more than one outlet to run all these things and a desk lamp. So we hired Roger to put this, to fix it up. And we had him do some other things. I can't remember now. Sanded the floors. We put in a lot more electricity, a lot of things. And we weren't finished. He came back. He came back after Labor Day, and he had stopped shaving. And then he got quieter and quieter, and the finished work wasn't finished, and he just left. He said, I'm going hunting. But we're not done. He said, I'll be back in the spring. I was dumbfounded. Yeah, but he and I, we met over food. I was working with him, sort of doing the grunt work, because I needed to get my room of my own, finished so I could continue writing. And he would bring these wild game sandwiches on white bread to lunch, and I'd be eating yogurt I was growing in my garden, I was growing arugula, and he said, "Why aren't you growing potatoes?" So he was a traditional Vermonter, but he was this hunter. And I was curious and then sort of gobsmacked. How could he leave in the middle of a job?
Yeah.
And I had a friend who said, that's what hunters do. And we should be very clear that the number of hunters in the country is a very small group of people.
Right.
And the number of people who oppose hunting is also very small.
Yeah.
But it's very charged, as you know where your question is going.
Mm-hmm.
And so fast forward 30 years, and I had heard this voice from the universe saying, learn to hunt. And I went to a class, and the teacher said, find a mentor. And I knew it would be Roger.
Yeah.
And we'd remained friends all these years. So he said to me, the first thing you got to know is a lot of people don't like hunting and they oppose it, but they don't know what hunters do for conservation.
Mm-hmm.
And he recited the 39 words, which I didn't know what they were. And these are is the Pittman something act.
Okay.
I should know it.
Yep.
It's an act from 1937 that taxes, there's an excise tax on all hunting equipment. And it's 11%. And it is dedicated by law to conservation efforts. It is allocated to every state according to the number of hunting licenses they sell. And it has been huge in conserving forests and wildlife. So at that first meeting with Roger, he said two things I'll never forget. One is, he said, tree huggers disparage hunters. And I thought to myself, if I hadn't left New York City, I would have been one of those.
Mm-hmm.
So I get it. If it's foreign to you, we're all a little xenophobic, some more than others. We try, and some of us try to overcome that. And the other thing he said is, if anyone can explain hunting to anybody, Deb, it's you, which I thought was a real vote of confidence. So I felt pressure then that I had to see it through.
Yeah.
But if you don't like hunting and you eat meat, you need to look at where your meat comes from.
Right.
And what kind of environmental harm that does. And if you don't eat meat, you need to look at how far your food travels.
Yeah.
And if you're eating Californian salad in Vermont in the winter, what is the price in oil? Mm-hmm. What is the price in carbon emissions of those very few calories? All right. And if you're eating out of season, what is the cost of eating that food out of season? So in 1985, I joined the local Brattleboro Food Co-op. And it was like an ethical landmine to go shopping because they were organically raised pears from Argentina and kind of less appealing apples that had been harvested in the fall and it was now winter. But they were raised in Vermont and stored here and didn't travel very far.
Mm-hmm. And
economics aside, Tim and I made this ethical decision that we would buy the local produce in season and we would make do. And it changes how you live and how you eat. You don't eat tomatoes in Vermont in February,
right,
unless you've canned them.
Yeah.
You don't eat fresh tomatoes in February, and you eat cabbage into the spring. But so there's no virtue about what you eat, but there is a consideration about the environmental impact of what you eat and how it's packaged. And it is incredibly demoralizing to see grocery stores grow bigger and bigger and bigger. But the fresh produce that comes from all over the world has actually shrunk to the periphery. Yeah. And inside are frozen, all organic, single serving, something or other.
Right. Yeah.
The carbon footprint of that little single serving of calories, which is energy for you to live, is enormous.
Right.
It's way outweighs the nutritional value of and the environmental impact of it.
Yeah.
So I don't say I don't suggest that anyone take up hunting unless they feel called to.
Yeah.
Um, but and I don't suggest that anybody give up eating meat, but I do suggest that people think about where any of their food comes. What is the environmental cost of producing faux meat? You know, it's really hip right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I'll have an Impossible Burger.
Yeah.
Well, what does it cost to create that? How far does each ingredient travel to the place where it's produced? How much water and
Yeah.
energy is used to produce it? How much plastic film is it packed in? And how many BTUs are used, or how much energy is used to keep it frozen?
Yeah.
And then travel in a frozen truck to your grocery store, or first to the warehouse and then to your
Mm-hmm.
grocery store and then to your home. And you can find virtue in anything,
Right.
and people do. I These are the questions that I've had to ask myself. And I tried an Impossible, or one of those faux meats.
Yeah.
I don't remember which one it was, or I do, but I'm not going to tell. I'm
Yeah.
not going to say. It was
Yeah.
it was very passable. I
Yeah.
mean, but not as good as a burger made from a cow raised on a farm 10 miles from my house, which
Yeah.
is about the same distance as the deer that I hunt.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, deer is the absolutely perfect local, wild, organic meat.
Yeah. Right.
I just don't always get one to serve.
Are you looking
So,
to change opinions or create conversation or a combo of both?
conversation.
Yeah.
I I I I have in my life held really strong opinions about things and thought I was right. And it's easy to be self-righteous. It is much harder to entertain ambiguity. And we see that politically, unfortunately. And we see that the lack of ambiguity costs us a great deal in civil society. It becomes very uncivil. And maybe this is something that comes with age. I hold civil discourse in very high value. For 17 years, I was the moderator of my town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I moved to Vermont, people said, "Oh, it's just an all-white state," which is pretty true. But I met more people of greater diversity than I knew in New York City. In New York City, I knew all these young training to be professionals or their parents. And in Vermont, my hunting mentor prides himself on coming in last in his high school class of 63 because he was working all the time.
Yeah.
He said that his wife, who's the valedictorian, wrote his papers for him. He did graduate. He's one of the smartest people I've ever met. I've met people who've been integrated into society who in other parts of the country would be sequestered in a home for people who don't have the same intellectual skills as others.
Yeah.
And they are part of the working community. It's really small communities. I live in a town of 1,700 people.
Mm-hmm.
And to some degree, you have to get along with everybody.
Yeah.
Even if you don't agree with them. And we still do. It's pretty good. Most of us still do. So the purpose of this book, aside from codifying all this in my own mind, because writing is one of the ways I make sense of the world.
Yeah.
One of the purposes of this book is to shake people maybe away from certainty. One of the first scenes in the book is I came home from learning about I took a class in animal calls. And I was telling my aunt and uncle about it over lunch in a restaurant. And my aunt, who I loved and miss greatly, she's passed on. She said, "Did you learn the sound a deer makes when it gets shot?" And I said, "Probably better than the pig was slaughtered for your BLT." And just like that, we were taking sides.
Mm.
And I ordered a hummus platter. Well, where did the chickpeas come from? How far did they travel?
Yeah.
You know, she changed her order. She felt shame. She changed her order to shrimp. Well, shrimp are made, a lot of shrimp are farmed by slave labor in Thailand, faraway places. It's really hard to be ethical about food. And, ethics are an individual thing. You have to make up, if you think it's ethical to have a Happy Meal or, some sort of fast food, that's your decision. But if you also are concerned about what there's so little that we as individuals can do
Right.
to change what's happening environmentally.
Yeah.
But the two most important things that we can do is change how much we drive,
Mm-hmm.
how much we travel. And I'm not saying don't go anywhere, but think about it.
Right.
How necessary is it? Can you carpool, etc.? And the other is, where are you sourcing your food? The ski areas here, the downhill ski areas, pride themselves on how all their packaging is recyclable. Well, recycling packaging takes a lot of energy to produce and a lot of energy to reformulate if it can be. And if it can be collected, it takes energy to collect it and to process it. So it's better to use recyclable containers, but it's even better to use reusable ones. If you can, it takes more effort.
Let's wrap up with this, Deborah. Like for the audience, the reader, your love letter. You've talked in kind of like what this book is about and kind of who the audience is. If you could just have time with the reader one-on-one before they open the cover of the book for the first time, what's your love letter? What's your hope for the reader?
So I'm going to tell you what I think reading is. I think reading is this incredibly intimate exchange between the reader and the writer. And I'm honored for anyone to pick up the book. And I welcome any reactions they have to it. I should also tell you, the book has a lot about death in it. Everything that we eat dies. And we're going to die. Mm-hmm. And I have a standard. I have shot a deer. Any deer I've shot has always been with a single bullet, an instant. And I've let a deer walk because I wasn't sure I could do that. I don't want to wound a deer. So I just ask a reader to have an open mind. There are a lot of stories in here. There's a lot about my life. It's a very personal book and about things that have nothing to do with deer. So, and it's a lot about being outdoors and finding a way. It's hard for those of us who have desk jobs to get outside. And it's hard for people who commute in cars to get outside. You can go from your garage to the parking garage.
Right.
You can go from your parking garage to your public transportation. You might be able to walk a few blocks when you get out of public transportation. People have also become really frightened of the outdoors. Tick, poison ivy, heat, all these things. So it's, I would hope that this might change a person's courage to go outside more and to try to find some place in nature. It's really a story about me finding my place in the natural world. And I feel really blessed to have gone on this journey of both learning how to read that landscape, being blessed to eat the landscape, and now to be able to tell the stories.
Mm-hmm.
So
Good.
Leo agrees.
We have Leo's paw of approval on that. There you go.
Right. Yeah.
There you go. I love it. Deborah, where do we go? Where do we send people to connect with you about the book, follow your journey, see what's next for you?
So the book will be published by Sibylline Press on November 4th.
Okay.
It is available for pre-order now wherever you buy your books. I am a great believer in independent bookstores, and you can buy it on any bookstore online. And you can buy it at your local independent bookstores. You can follow me on Instagram, on Facebook, or read my Substack called Living in Place. But to follow me or find my website is deborahleeluskin.com.
Nice.
And that's DeborahLeeluskin. And I love to hear from people. I love to hear people who disagree with me as long as it's civil.
Yeah.
I don't care how you spell, but I do care the tone.
Mm-hmm.
and let's have civil discourse, and let's respect each other. And and you can also, even though the book won't be available to November 4th, you can pre-order it now, and
nice.
that helps the book get more play in the world of commerce, which is a whole wild and woolly world I'm learning about now.
Yeah. There you go.
Dave, thank you so much.
It's so good to have you here.
Just talked your ears off.
No, I think this is great. I think we've covered some pretty interesting ground together, and I feel like I can now walk into the forest without getting lost. So it's a win-win for me by having you on.
Okay. Thank you.
It's excellent.
Yeah, it's just been great.
Very good. Everybody, all information for Deborah in the show notes. As always, go click through the links, pre-order that book. When you get the copy of the book, not if, when, please leave a great review. I know she'd love to hear your thoughts on the book.
Thank you for saying that.
What it means to you, what you learned. And as you're listening to this, think of somebody who you can share this with as well. Someone else would be interested in the book, in Deborah's story, in the podcast, about Deborah and her journey. There's somebody listening that you would really like to send this to. Make sure you do that. Yeah.
One final thing is that the book is also about aging fiercely. And for a woman over 60, life is just beginning. Your kids are grown. You might have grandkids, but you're free of fertility. You're free of childcare. This is just a wonderful time. It's what I found. I hope that if you don't feel this way, maybe reading the book will give you some courage to do something really daring and find a new part of your life with joy and courage.
It's a great book for anybody living their next chapter. Would you say?
Absolutely.
It's the name of the show. I got to stick it in there somewhere. Right. Deborah,
it is definitely about the next chapter.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Deborah. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Take care.
Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. Glad to have you here. I just want to let you know that you can always find out what we're doing live in the moment by going to our YouTube channel. Head over to livingthenextchapter.com. There'll be a link right there. Head over to our YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all the things that all the YouTubers love to say. And in our YouTube channel, a couple things. You're going to get advanced listens. You're going to get the episodes that we're working on in real time. So we record and post daily on our YouTube channel. I'd love for you to give us a follow over there. As well, we're making playlists. We have over 500 episodes. So finding the right episode for you, we're trying to group things into playlists. So if you like children's books, if you like business, you like historical fiction, we're grouping our authors together to make it a little easier for you to find your favorite next author. So head over to livingthenextchapter.com. And again, I'd love to hear from you. Hearing from the listeners of the show is great. And I just want to say thank you for being a part of the podcast family. And I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your time, and your listen. Take care.